I think this may be the manuscript you are referring to, my son. There is quite a story behind it, you know. It is said to have been written by a young monk who came to this very house some 450 years ago. He is alleged to have been summoned by the venerable ancestor of our great family, that pious and excellent woman, Gudrid Thorbjarnadottir.
This is unbelievable.
What's that? Speak up, young man.
I said, this is unbelievable, Monsignor.
Ah, yes. That is my view exactly. The voyage described in that book seems too strange to be anything but a figment of the writer's imagination. His Latin is poor as well.
With all due respect to Monsignor, that is not quite what I meant. I think that whoever wrote these pages must have experienced something truly remarkable. It was in the third week of my stay in this cold and God-forsaken land that a ship from far away arrived in the fjord.
There you are. Come in. I beg of you, find Ravenhead before he sails. I suspect that he won't stop when he comes to Greenland. I think that he aims to go on to Vinland, and I know all too well the dangers that lurk out west. We went separate ways last night, exchanging harsh words. Since then I've prayed for the Holy Virgin to show me the way. Hurry now to Ravenhead and give him this. When Ravenhead came to us as a little boy, he wore this bear's tooth around his neck. It is a heathen amulet, and I hasten to take it from him. But now I'm old, and I might never see him again. Therefore he shall have what belongs to him, with my blessing.
Ravenhead is not here. He must be down by the ship.
Hear us, Thor, slayer of giants and lord of the clouds. Don't be angry that we nowadays mostly keep to the white prize. We know that you are the seafarer's friend, and at sea we put our trust in you. Accept our sacrifice and keep your hand over us on this journey. Lord has heard us. He has heard us.
I am Ravenhead. What do you want of me? This I remember, like in a dream. I understand that my mother has sent you, and I owe you thanks. It may be that you bring good luck, and that is something we might need. Now you shall join me on this voyage. The tide is turning! Make ready for departure!
Styrbjörn is my name, and my father sailed to Greenland with Eirik the Red. I've made this journey myself many times, and I'm the only one here who knows the way across the Greenland Sea. Remember that everything I tell you is told in the strictest confidence. It's only because Ravenhead is my friend that I may show you some of my secrets. If your tongue should slip, you'll be in trouble.
You look pale, my friend. What could be better than the smell of tar and a rolling sea? If the wind holds, we now have a week's sailing to Greenland. Have a look around my ship and get acquainted with my men. Then I would like to tell you about Eirik the Red.
Well, welcome aboard. I am Bue, and I hail from Upland in the land of the Swedes. You should know that I'm a long-time friend of Ravenhead's. In fact, I practically raised the boy. I've sailed with him to Norway and Denmark, England and Ireland. He's become a good tradesman. But then, I'm not too bad myself. Now we're partners in this ship. So, let me show you the goods we will trade with in Greenland. You are fearless and curious. I like that. Maybe you can have a look in the chest later. You're looking at a piece of treasure. From the shape of the wrapping, you might guess it's a sword, and I think it's meant for a very special man. The blade is made by Ulfbert. He's a most famous Franconian swordsmith. It's an old blade, but still perfect in balance and keenness. Ravenhead must have paid a king's ransom for it. This one is not for sale. We've got several freshwater casks, and they are the most vital cargo we carry. Why several, you might ask? Why not a single big one? Well, just imagine we've only got one, and it springs a leak, huh? I think you've got the point. This may not look exciting to you, but it would be highly desirable in Greenland. It's wheat. Unfortunately, it started to sprout, but it will do nicely for preparing malt. That's what the Greenlanders want it for. They need it to make beer. Wheat won't grow in Greenland, you know. Well, this is an iron cauldron from Sweden. It's carefully wrapped, of course, to protect it from the salty sea breeze.
Much skilled work and a lot of iron plate has gone into it, so it's very valuable. The Greenlanders will have to come up with a lot of walrus ivory if they want to keep it. Here we keep the ship's food. You know, there are sailors who claim that they like dried pork and salt-cured herring better than any landlub affair. Don't believe them. After a few weeks at sea, most men would give an arm and a leg for fresh food and a hot meal. But of course we can't make a cooking fire on board the ship, so you'll have to do with cold and salty grub. You'll get some variation though, because soon there will be fresh maggots crawling in the meat.
So, you're eager to hear about Eirik the Red. Look over there. That is the seat of the council at Thorsnes. That's where it all began, more than a generation ago. At that place, Eirik the Red was declared an outlaw on Iceland. Had that not happened, I wouldn't be here now. Eirik the Red was given his name on account of his hair and his flaming temper. Many were those that died who came in his way. Eirik wed Kjothild Jornsdottir in the Hauka Valley on Iceland. There he built his homestead, and there unto Eirik was born a son, whom he gave the name Leif. You have heard of Leif Eiriksson, haven't you? But Eirik suddenly had a lot to consider. His slaves caused a landslide that ruined the neighboring homestead. The neighbor's kinsmen then took revenge by putting Eirik's slaves to the sword. This Eirik could not bear lightly. He went to see the kinsmen, and he slew them both. After that, he was outlawed in the Hauka Valley. Eirik then settled on the islands in Bredafjord. While he built his home there, he lent 2 benches to the farmer Torgest. Come spring, Eirik rode to Torgest to reclaim his benches. But Torgest wouldn't return them. Eirik then seized the benches and left. Torgest summoned his men and rode after him. After the battle, 2 of Torgest's sons lay dead. Such a price for the loan of 2 benches was deemed too high by the council. Eirik the Red was sentenced an outlaw on Iceland for 3 years. He was now fair game for each and everyone. I'll tell you more later, but you have a lot to learn on board. I advise you to go and talk to my men.
Now we're out on the open sea. Due astern, you can still see Snæfellsjökull, the highest mountain in western Iceland. That's our landmark when we set sail for Greenland.
Ah, there you are. I don't mind talking to you. I suppose you've been wondering about Ravenhead and his dark looks. The truth is that he's of skrælings descent. He was born in Vinland. I believe that he was taken from there when still a small boy, but nobody knows for certain what happened. No one but Gudrun, his foster mother, and she would say nothing. But I talk too much. Shall I tell you more about our merchandise? You're looking at a piece of treasure. From the shape of the wrapping, you might guess it's a sword. Your interest seems to be genuine, so I'll open the chest for you. These are fit for a chieftain's table. Wine glasses from the Wineland. It's said that Leif Eiriksson is a devout Christian and craves wine for the Holy Communion. So, in our cargo we carry several jars of wine from the Rhine. It's still quite new and shouldn't be too sour if it's drunk soon. You may have heard that Knut the Great, King of Denmark and England, ordered 36 axes from a Norwegian master. The same smith made these. I was a blacksmith in my young days, so I know what it takes to make a good axe. This box holds our most valuable cargo. I might open it for you when we get to know each other better. Everyone carries a sheath knife, men and women alike. It has many uses apart from cutting food. I might tell you later of one occasion where my knife served me well. Everyone carries a sheath. Now this jar holds something that I really care about. It's honey from Denmark, where they know how to keep bees without being stung too badly. I don't mind telling you that I have sampled the contents a bit. I mean, it wouldn't do to sell bad honey to the good people of Greenland, would it? This jar I bought from a tradesman who came back from Miklagård in Byzantium. Inside are black, round grains that are said to grow on bushes in the Far East. Some priests use it as medicine and praise its power. It can also be used as a spice on food. It gives a pleasant, burning taste, very useful if the meat is old, tainted. It will fetch us a handsome profit, I think. It's called piper or pepper. This box holds our most...
Very well. I'll tell you about Eirik the Red and his journey to Greenland. When Eirik the Red was outlawed, he bade Jothild and Leif farewell. He then sailed west, just as we do now. You see, he'd heard tales of a land out there in the ocean. Eirik sailed for many days. Consider the courage required to travel unknown seas in those times. One might be headed to where the world ends, where giants do battle with gods, and where the ravenous jaws of the Fenris wolf await the unwary traveler. At long last, he was in sight of land. But he saw only mountains and ice. He rounded the southern cape and then sailed north along the coast. There he saw lush grass growing in the valleys, happened upon walrus and whale, but saw no sign of man. For 3 years, Eirik explored the barren land. He called it Greenland. And you may wonder why. Well, he thought that it would be easier to persuade people to settle there if the land had a pleasant name. Finally, Erik turned his ship towards Iceland. But there, Thorgest awaited his return to seek revenge for his fallen sons.
The sun is still low in the sky, but we should make sure that we're on course and haven't sailed too far south, because then we might sail past the southern tip of Greenland, just like Bjarne did when he sighted Vinland.
It's good to talk to you again. Frankly, I think that Ravenhead's aim with this journey to Greenland has little to do with trade. He's hoping to find Leif Eiriksson still alive and willing to tell about Vinland. That's what I think, though I've heard that Leif Eiriksson's dead. You keep this to yourself. Shall I tell you more about our merchandise? I'm impressed by your inquiring mind. I'll let you take a peek inside. Now here you see 2 silver pendants. One is a Christian crucifix. The other one is Thor's hammer, of course. As for myself, I consider Thor to be more powerful at sea or in battle. No offense meant. Christ is said to be good for many things, and I don't mind wearing his cross when I'm trading. You see, Christians prefer to do business with fellow believers. You dare ask a man to see his silver? You must be brave indeed, or should I say foolhardy? Well, later we'll see if I have a mind to show you something. I suppose you've seen amber before. Rich bishops like to have their rosaries made of amber. I bought it from a ship that came from the rivers of Russia, loaded with furs and slaves. They needed the slaves for rowing, for out of 24 men who sailed from Sweden, only 6 came back with the ship. On the other hand, their shares in the profit were bigger, that's true. That comb would make a nice gift for someone. It's made of elk horn and is excellent for combing lice out of your hair. I found it in Ireland last year. I'll have you know that we Norsemen are well liked by the maidens over there. They seem to appreciate that we cultivate our hair and take a bath on Saturdays, if practicable. Most of us wear something like this ring pin to keep our cloaks fastened. This is a simple one, but I think we should be able to sell quite a few of them to the Greenlanders. I suppose you've seen amber before. Now here you see 2 silver pendants. Everyone carries a sheath knife, men and women alike. It has many uses apart from everyone carries. You're looking at a piece of treasure.
You are curious, perhaps, to hear what happened to Eirik the Red? Well, then I shall tell you. Eirik arrived safely in Iceland. He had now atoned for the death of Thorgest's sons. But there was one who hadn't forgiven, and that was Thorgest. Come spring, they met at the council. The fight was hard. Eirik was defeated by Thorgest. But that was the beginning of their reconciliation. Eirik now told a long tale about Greenland. The climate was mild, he said, and the land was green with pastures. Many believed his words, and when Eirik again set sail for Greenland, he was accompanied by 25 ships. But the sea can be treacherous. Of the 25 ships, only 14 arrived with Eirik in Greenland.
It's overcast now, so we can't use the solar compass. But it isn't necessary anyway, because we're not far from Greenland. For several days we've seen icebergs, and now we can spot other signs too. We'll see whales in great numbers when we've passed the southern tip and turn north. And look, up there. Guillemots never venture far from land. And watch the colour of the sea. The water is much greener than before. That colour comes from the Greenland ice. Look ahead to starboard. Can you see the seals? Seals don't like to swim far out to sea. And now you can smell the seaweed in the grass, can't you? It means the land is close to the windward side, and then our luck has been better than that of Bjarne Hurjalsson. If you want to hear about Bjarne's exploits, I think Ravenhead knows that story.
Well, here you are again. I'll tell you something. No one in his right mind would sail to Vinland these days. There's little profit to be found anymore, and hazards aplenty. If I were a wise man, I'd stay in Greenland and let Ravenhead sail on his own. Again, I talk too much. Shall I tell you more about our merchandise? Since you're so persistent, and I've come to like you in a way, I'll let you have a brief look. Here are my weights and my trader's balance for weighing silver. I tell you, whenever I use them, I make sure that my sword is easy to reach. Except for stealing a man's woman or calling him a lover of men, there's no worse insult than questioning a tradesman's weights. This is a silver coin, as you can see, but I will never part with it. It has a story. I had a brother, and his name was Gudmund. He left home while I was still a boy, and I missed him more than I have missed anyone since. Many years later, I met a Swede who returned home from Miklagård. The man told me that he and Gudmund had served the Emperor Basileus in the Varing Guard, and that Gudmund had died in battle with Bulgarians. I bought the man beer, and he became drunk. I asked him what had become of Gudmund's pay. He told me that Gudmund had gambled and lost all his silver before the battle. Then I knew that the man was lying, since Gudmund would never have gambled. I nailed his right hand to the table with my knife and asked him to tell the truth, or I would cut his hand off. The man begged for his life and talked. There were 3 men who'd ambushed Gudmund, since he had much silver saved. 2 of them were killed by my brother before he died, but this man escaped with the silver. He was the one who had gambled and lost it. He showed me the one coin that remained, asked me to take it. Since he told me the truth, I kept my promise and didn't cut off his hand. I cut off his head. This is a coin.
Thanks to Styrbjörn's knowledge, we are well on course. It was worse for a man called Bjorn when he set sail for Greenland. You've probably heard that Leif Eiriksson discovered Vinland. But you see, he wasn't the first. Bjorn Herjolfsson was the name of a tradesman who came home to Iceland during the summer to stay with his father Herjolf. There he was told that his father had followed Eirik the Red to a new land in the west. Bjorn was used to spending his winters with Herjolf, and he saw no reason to change his habits. He promptly set sail for Greenland. Out at sea, a thick fog and a northerly wind came down upon them. Long they drifted, and soon lost their way. At last they came in sight of land, a land that was low-lying and forested. But Bjorn had heard that no trees grew on Greenland, so he didn't go ashore. They arrived at another coastline, but Bjorn said it couldn't be Greenland, since there were no glaciers. His men now wanted to go ashore to fetch timber and water. They grumbled when Bjorn again set sail to the north. 3 days later, they sighted a stony land with mountains and glaciers. But Bjorn decided that the land was worthless and thus it couldn't be Greenland. After 4 days of hard sailing, they were once more in sight of land. Bjorn considered this to be Greenland at last. His luck held, for they landed just where his father had built his house.
You, Ravenhead, I remember as a small boy, but now you're too old to ride on my knee. You and your men are welcome to Leif Eiriksson at Bretalid, and you may stay for as long as you wish.
I thank you, chieftain, for your hospitality. We will not stay long, because we are on our way to Vinland. Now choose among my cargo what you will. And this sword is yours, forged by the best smith in the land of the Franconians.
I'm not as hale as in times past, and my eyes are dim. But Christ has let me keep a steady hand. I've heard it said that you are a careful man, Ravenhead, tough in trade, and sparing with silver. But this is a gift for a king. I will not be worse, but call now for a feast where nothing shall be missing.
My name is Torjans, and I know Leif Eiriksson well. He is the greatest among chieftains. He christened Greenland and has enjoyed success in everything. And yet I think he has one regret.
The cautious guest who comes to the table speaks sparingly, listens with ears, learns with eyes. Such is the seeker of knowledge.
You look as if you're far from home, stranger. Eirik is my name, and it's been a long time since I was out voyaging. But I've travelled more than most, and I've been to places not visited by many.
My name is Arnulf, and I'm Leif Eiriksson's foreman. I guess you're hungry after your journey. What you see here on the table is the best that we have to offer. Here is a delicacy. There is good grazing for sheep in the valleys here, and a Greenlander had better like mutton. The head is boiled in a pot, and if you want a tasty piece, you should take the opportunity to grab an eye. This is the best. Beer is the best drink there is, and I tell you there's no better beer than Mistress Seagan's. She brews it using fresh spring water, barley, and something called hops, but no one is allowed to see her prepare it. Unfortunately, we don't drink beer very often, since we can't grow barley in Greenland. We make skyr just like they do in Iceland. We let skimmed milk get sour, then we squeeze out the whey, and what's left is this fresh-tasting, creamy curd. Not everybody appreciates this tidbit. It's harkon, which you can tell by the smell. We caught the shark last spring as soon as the ice broke up. It's lain buried in the ground for 3 months and is now quite tender and tasty. To me, seal roast is better than whale steak. This young seal I've killed myself, and you just can't find meat more tender. Honey is not something we get every day, not even on the chieftain's table. This honey you recognize, you brought it yourselves, and were duly paid for it, even though the pot wasn't quite full. The grazing here is good for 24 cows. That's the reason we have butter and cheese on the table, not only to treat our guests. Here is reindeer marrow, mixed with blood and fat and then boiled. This is rich food that keeps well when we're out on a hunting trip. Seagan, our mistress, has spared nothing. She's laid out newly baked bread, even though we can't grow any grain here. But we have to settle for what you tradesmen bring, at an exorbitant price. We eat salted and dried cod all winter. It was good that you brought salt, even though it was very expensive. You see, we boil out seaweed to get salt, but it just isn't enough. We eat salted and dried cod all winter. It was good that you brought salt. If you'd like stronger drink, you can try Miss Seagan's mead. How she ferments it is her secret, but she uses water and honey and is strict with the maids. The jars have to be clean. Myself, I'd rather have beer. The grazing here is good for 24. This piglet we slaughtered yesterday when we heard that sails were sighted outside the fjord. It's been grilled in the pit in front of the house. Honey is not...
The newcomer needs fire. His knees are numb. The man who has made his way over oceans needs food and fresh linen. And, maybe he needs something more.
I know you are curious. and I myself am eager to receive advice about our journey. But remember, a ready tongue unrestrained brings bad reward.
Well, I understand your thirst for knowledge, Ravenhead, considering your background. But a voyage to Vinland is no easy task. I remember well when Bjarne Herjolfsson came here to Brattahlid and told us of the lands he sighted. I was young then, but I knew that one day I would make such a voyage, and I would explore the land, not just look at it. We were 3 brothers, Thorstein, Thorvald, and I. And we used to tell our father that he ought to lead a venture westwards. But my father needed convincing. Eirik the Red has done his bit, he said, and couldn't stand the toil as well as he used to. One evening, we were sitting and talking in the privy. We lacked timber in this treeless land, I said, and Bjarne had told us of large forests. We urged our father to lead us on a voyage that would earn us both fortune and glory. Finally, Erik tired of our nagging and told me to fit out a ship. When summer arrived, we were ready with 35 good men. Now we waited for our chieftain and saw him riding towards us at good speed. But there was a stone on the path. The horse stumbled, and my father fell off and sprained his foot. Can you believe it?
One-eyed I am, and some take me for a fool. Yes, yes, yes. But I'm still good at many things. Listen to this. The lame rides a horse. The maimed drives the herd. The deaf is brave in battle. A man is better blind than buried. A dead man is deaf at nothing.
Chieftain, you have entertained us like a king. Now tell us at last about your journey to Vinland.
So be it. I told you how we fitted out a ship and how the horse of Eirik the Red stumbled when he was about to board. My men were the best, and were all used to the sea. All of them. But Turker, he quickly became pale and ran for the gunwale. I was fond of Turker. As a small boy, I often sat in his lap and listened to him telling stories about his southern homeland. But now he moaned in distress and prayed to the Mother of God for deliverance from his misery. We sailed northwards and then to the west and found the land that Bjarne had seen. But unlike Bjarne, we rowed ashore. I named the place Helluland because the ground was like one giant slab of stone. Then we sailed south and arrived at a land with wide-stretched white beaches. I named that land Markland for its dense forests. Turker now had recovered somewhat, but then the wind started blowing from the northeast, So we returned to the gunwale. Two days later, we sighted land anew, with hills and forests. The water was so shallow at low tide that the ship stood on dry land, but still it was a long walk to the shore. There was a creek, and above it a small lake. The lake was full of salmon, and there was plenty of fodder for the cattle, and we had everything we could need. We had discovered a good land. But still we were not able to stay there. Were we?